Jose?
Yes,
Jose?
Tammy. It's Jose.
There are 8 attendees. I can't. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I can see them down here. Sorry about that. Never mind.
Do we have someone trapped down there?
Well, I was trying to see. So.
Okay. Well, please let me know, and either I or Lisa can bring.
Yeah,
them
I don't
up.
see anybody right
Okay.
now.
Okay. I know John Carter gets stuck down there. So. So we'll get started. Let's give it 2 more minutes. Let's get started at 7:05. That's okay with everybody. No,
Thank you.
I don't see the task force members under attendees.
Okay, thank you, Gary. But if anyone sees any task force members stuck as an attendee, we'll just let us know and we'll bring them up.
Oh, I do see a task force member. Walter Alcorn.
Hey, thanks, Jose. I appreciate everybody. I'm on the road tonight, so Jose gets to run the meeting, but I'll be listening in.
Thank you, Walter.
All right. Thank you.
You're on the road like Charles Corral.
I remember that, Annie. I do.
Good evening,
So
John
I see that
Carter.
we have. Oh,
Hello.
hey, yeah. So we got John Carter, and so let's go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in for this task force meeting tonight. Let me put up the agenda for tonight. I think we're on meeting 35, but we'll find out in a moment. Yeah, so we are. So yeah, so task force meeting number 35, and we have a pretty busy agenda tonight. So we're still, meeting weekly. Our next meeting will actually be on Tuesday, November 16th, and that date was more or less because of the Reston P&Z meets on Monday, the third Mondays of each month. So we'll have our meeting on Tuesday, since we do have some P&Z members here. And then we should have, we're meeting weekly through November and maybe December. But we do have 2 topic areas for tonight. We have transportation, and John Mooney's gonna have some information to share on that one based on information he got, staff feedback that he got. But we also have parks and open space, and I know Bill Penniman shared, a draft wasn't shared, so maybe a vote on parks may not be needed tonight, but I know Jennifer may join on, and or she's not on, she'll show her latest draft, and then then we'll talk about topics for the next meeting on next week. So, any questions on the agenda? And gonna pull up my participants button because can't see everyone's hand. But if you have a comment, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Jose, hi. It's Lynn.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi. I just wanted to express the land use working group's gratitude to those that have sent in comments and edits. We've received quite a few, so I just wanted to say we asked for them and folks delivered. So thank you.
Oh, wonderful, Lynn. Thank you for that update. Any other? Oh, John Mooney, you have a hand.
Thank you, Jose. The only thing I'd like to know is, do we know any specific dates beyond November 16th?
Well, that's a good question, John. I know it was mentioned by the task force. If everyone could see my calendar, the week of Thanksgiving. I heard from a task force member that they wouldn't be available due to travel plans or something like that. So I guess we could leave it up to the task force today or next week to decide whether we would convene that week of Thanksgiving which would be the 22nd. And then the other date that I had as a tentative hold was the 29th. But those were just holds, and maybe first, if everyone is actually available that week of Thanksgiving, we could have a meeting that week. But yeah, we can check just to make sure people are available for one.
Okay, so you prefer to do that at the end of the meeting?
Yeah, let's do that at the end of the meeting, John, or folks can just send through the chat if they're available, if not as well. But yeah, let's hold that for the end.
Okay.
Maura Callahan, did you have a comment?
Really quickly, Lynn, I was reading that land use chapter and I had some further comments. So is there like a deadline when you're taking comments? Do you want me to also put my comments into someone else's so they're all on the same document?
Lynn?
I had to unmute myself, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, to answer your question, Moira, I'm actually going through and just aggregating all of the comments from everybody into one document. So yours will be attributed to you as the land use working group is reviewing those.
Oh, I mean, I had additional comments. So do you want me to take, like, for example,
Yeah.
Mark Looney gave a bunch of comments. Do you want me to just use his and tack onto that, or just pick up any document and put mine in it?
Well, since I have not, I'm Mark Looney is the next one that I'm going to be aggregating his edits into our document. So if you want to pick up his and add yours to that, then I will wait and add the new document from you for both you and Mark Looney.
Okay.
That would be great.
All right.
Thank you.
But
Thanks,
only
Moira.
those things more you agree with, right?
Yeah, I'll be deleting your comments, Mark, if you don't mind.
She's not going to touch yours, Mark. Don't worry.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, thanks. Love you both.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Maura. Any other comments
you.
on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, let's get started. John Mooney, I know. Let's get started with transportation. So.
Thank you, Jose. Let's jump right in. If we do this right, I think we can have a fairly brief but important conversation tonight. I don't know whether you had a chance to read my cover email, my transition email, but basically we've not talked about transportation by my record since July 22nd. And so we've not made any changes in our text because we wanted to finish comments from the task force. And secondly, to receive comments from Fairfax County DOT before we did another version. We didn't want to proliferate versions of the chapter. So we have in fact received very good detailed comments from Fairfax County DOT, as I noted in the transmittal email. And so they came in two parts. One were comments on the issues decision matrix that we had been working on in July. And those are noted in blue in the text that I gave you. And then secondly, 4 pages of most of them more stylistically, but a few substantive issues, which I have not tried to work in here. So the idea is, if we're able to, so I would like us to do 2 things. I'd like us to vote on the 3 yet unvoted issues, 9, 10, and 11 in the matrix, taking into consideration Fairfax County DOT's comments. And secondly, review those issues from the earlier issues, so 1 through 9, upon which Fairfax County DOT recommended an approach different from the task force vote, which is items 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And with that, then our drafting committee, which is Bill Penniman, Gary Maupin, and I, we will then do a new, hopefully complete draft for your consideration in several weeks, which include both our work tonight and also the 4 pages of notes, mostly stylistic, as I say. So does that make sense? Is that clear? And does that make sense? So I sent you a revised document over the weekend from the document I had sent you last weekend. But the only thing that was changed, were the page numbers, because I I now refer to Jose's wonderful October 26 compiled sections edition of the whole comprehensive plan. Okay, so the only thing that's changed is the page references. So none of the substance has changed. Does that make sense? Is it clear, and does it sound like a good way to proceed? Okay.
John, would you like me to put up the Word document up on the screen, or?
Would you please?
Okay, yeah, happy to do that. Give me 1 second.
John,
Yes.
I just, I think you'll agree with this, and Bill, I think we have to compliment the Fairfax County staff for doing such a thorough job on going through this. I hope, the other chapters get this kind of attention. Maybe don't agree with everything, but they did a really good job of going through everything and catching things we were surprised at and so forth in terms of, even editing. So
Thank you for saying that, Gary, and I totally agree, and I think Bill Penniman felt the same. So they gave us detailed written comments, and then we had a wonderful conversation for an hour and 15 minutes, I believe. And it was just really a very good experience. So in a sense, we approached this differently. We got the staff comments before we wrote the final draft. And they were both in what they said and the manner in which it said it extraordinarily helpful. Thank you, Gary, for saying that. So, yep. So let's go to the three things that we had not talked about. So Jose has come to the last page of that matrix, and you can tell what the last one that we did is number 8 because it's the last one to have red in it. So red is an indicator of a task force vote. So let's look at number 9. Jennifer Juszczyk said since the vote was to eliminate reference to LOSE in number 5 above, that we try to express without reference to the concept, the basic concept, without referencing LOS at all. And my response is, I think that's basically done in 77 to 78, in pages 77 to 78. Again, in Jose's October version of the consolidated sections. So we can tinker with it a bit more when we go through and write the proposed final draft. But I think we already have kind of the concept there. Does anybody want to say anything further about number 9?
I think it's worth noting that the staff recommended retaining LOSE
right
in the document.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We're going to do the last 3, which have not been done, and then we're going to go back and go through the other ones, Bill, including that.
How is that one different from item 4, where it says keep? The staff recommends keeping LOSE.
Right. So Jennifer had said, let's eliminate a reference to LOSs. Let's see if we can express the basic concept. So it was, anyway, she made that recommendation after the task force had voted to eliminate reference to LOSs in general and LOSE in particular. But we will come back to that, Bill, when we go through their other comments.
And Bill, the reason why I made that comment is because the task force seems to want to eliminate LOS, but the county staff want to keep it. And so I was trying to go for something in the middle because the vote was to eliminate it.
Okay. So we'll get back to your point, Bill. That is part of the plan. That's step 2 of the plan for this evening. So if we can look at the new 10, Gary had expressed the desire to express more clearly and repeat it more forcefully the need for connections with metro stations from all parts of Reston. And I note there, I think it's already mentioned on the pages that I've indicated there in yellow. But again, that's something as we redraft it, we can point that up. Is that satisfactory to you, Gary?
Yeah, I just kind of repeat the concerns, walkability here in Reston Town Center. It's, a real problem, the parking related to the metro and so forth. And of course, south of Wiley is an issue, and in general, the Herndon one. So I'm repeating, but I think we need to emphasize this point. It puts us in a difficult position in other areas of the transportation because of the access to those metro stations in Reston, for me particularly Reston Town Center, which has got significant issues.
Okay, thank you. If we can move to number 11, that's the white paper that Jan brought to us. I think the paper is dated August 6th, and it has to do with both intersection improvements and a greenway in the Pinecrest Glade area, near that intersection. And so for this, Jose, if you can take us to let me say what they said. So I sent this all to you. This is part of this is the white paper. Jose is now showing the white paper. So one was to improve the intersection at Glade and Pinecrest, and the other was to create a Pinecrest corridor there, a greenway. And so in their email to me of October 28th, which is in the materials I sent you, they commented on it in this way. They said the specific roadway treatment recommendations for this area would not typically be addressed by the comprehensive plan. Those are more for the, and I want to thank Mike Garcia and John King for being here tonight. They can answer any questions, but basically they said that that's not typically addressed by a comprehensive plan. It's something more, it's a recommendation that would be made to Fairfax County DOT to discuss with Vdot for an intersection improvement. Secondly, they said they are forwarding that specific recommendation to the capital projects team, and they will follow it up with additional feedback. And then on the third point, they say the Pinecrest Greenway concept seems like a logical additional direct active transportation connection. There may be challenges in implementing it, environmental engineering, and those could be noted in the plan along with the description of the desire for this kind of connection. So basically, and John and Mike, please speak up if I misstate this, but they are open to and seem to invite the inclusion of this recommendation in the plan, though the details would have to be worked out. Did I summarize your position correctly, Mike and John?
Hi, John. This is John King. Yeah, I believe so. Certainly, we encourage the task force and the community to make recommendations like that greenway if that's something they desire. So it seemed logical to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you. Jan?
I was just saying that it's been researched by Pinecrest Cluster. One of the board members and got together with the president, and so they have the rights of the land, and they know that RA, I believe, has some of that land, and Vdot has some of that land, but it probably is doable. The whole idea was to put it into the comprehensive plan, so it's like a placeholder. a thing that we know will be coming and we want to do.
Thank you,
once
Jan.
it's in there, that's what it'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. So
John,
the-
can I interrupt
Ye-
there? This
yes.
is Tammy. I believe I spoke to you early on and discussed, should this be a linear park or part of the transportation plan? And I thought we agreed that it was more park, linear park.
Yeah.
Now, if it wants to be both places, fine, but I don't think we should spend too much more time on it in a lengthy discussion, other than the community over in that area desperately wants this. I spent like 2 days on the phone with RA and Jan and other people involved with it, and by email as well. So I don't know, what do you think? Do you want it both places, or do you want it in Parks, Recs, and open space?
Based on the comments because part of it is to increase connectivity by way of this greenway, I think it warrants at least mention in the transportation plan, because there are other similar connections that are highlighted toward the end of the transportation chapter. So I think it merits mention, at least in the transportation plan, if the task force wants to do it. And then we can make the judgment whether or not it should be included in the parks and open space plan too. But I would say, if the task force agrees with the idea, then we should, I think, at least mention it here.
Thank you.
Yes, Jan.
And
I would like it to be in both. I think you can go into more detail in the other one and just mention it in transportation. I don't think it hurts to have it both.
Okay. So let me therefore ask the task force to vote on 2 points. How many, and Jan, let me ask you first. You understand what the Fairfax County DOT guys say about this, the intersection improvements, which they think warrant consideration, so they forwarded it to their colleagues in the capital projects to examine, but they don't think it fits in the comprehensive plan. Are you okay with that?
I would like to have it listed in the comprehensive plan. Just to show that it's been forwarded, that it's on the plan, it's a plan. But we'll see what the vote comes up to be.
Okay. So we'll vote on that question. Certainly, again, Fairfax County DOT guys looked at it favorably enough to pass it on to capital projects for consideration. So
it's just a way
how
to
many?
monitor it, a way to monitor it and placemaking.
Okay. So we're going to vote on the Greenway separately. Okay.
Yes.
So how many people want the intersection improvements listed as part of the comprehensive plan? So if everyone would clear hands.
This is Mike Jennings. I just have one question on this voting that I thought of last week, and that is, if you're part of a team of people that has an alternate as well as a main member, should just the main member vote, or does everybody vote, including alternates? Jose, do you know about that?
Sorry, everyone, scrambling to unmute. But I think for all intents and purposes, there are some members and alternates. So I think that this is just to get an initial vote on some of these decision issues, unless the supervisor sees otherwise. But I think everyone has voted as a task force together.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, you're saying that it would be the main member and the alternate, or just the main members of the task force that vote?
I think both have voted together, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken.
Yeah, I voted for everything.
Okay.
I'm an
So-
alternate and I
Well,
always
so
vote.
I guess to keep it
Okay.
consistent, maybe let's just continue that.
Good. All right.
Could I ask for a clarification?
Yes,
I mean, I just want to make sure I even understand what we're voting on. There's a description of a project area with lots of detail. There's something called a midterm project. And in terms of what you sent us, that's what I see. But the midterm project says that it wouldn't be listed in the, I mean, that, I'm just confused. I'm happy to vote, but I don't understand what we're voting on.
John?
Okay, so
We're voting on this, the inclusion of it in the comprehensive plan as a placemaker.
But what's the it?
so we're
There
not,
seem to be multiple
at this
parts. So
point-
what,
at this point, we are not talking about the midterm project. We're talking about the intersection improvements, which has 6 points.
And which are badly needed for safety.
And
So it's-
John, did you indicate the staff said normally a comp plan does not go into this kind of detail in a comp plan?
Yes.
Thank you. That would be the
Normally,
issue.
they do not include intersection improvements,
Yeah,
but they found it a credible enough request that they referred it for evaluation to their capital projects team.
I think you've got what you need, but Jan, but
Well, let's
just an
see.
FYI, normally these aren't in comp plans.
So, so again, let us vote. How many people want to have those 6 points of the intersection improvement included in the plan? Please raise your hand, and Jose, please count.
Okay, so everyone that wants it, please put your hand up. And I will count hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So so John, unless I'm counting wrong, I see 6 hands.
You counted 10?
6.
6, okay. So let's clear hands. Everybody clear all hands. Those who do not want it included in the plan, please raise your hands. And again, I will be abstaining on this and other votes until I can vote with the Reston County Board of Directors. Reston County, Reston Association Board of Directors.
All right, everyone, I'll be counting hands
All
in 5,
opposed.
4, 3, 2, 1. A hand magically appeared. Give me 1 second.
It's what?
No, there was a hand that magically appeared. Let me recount this. Give me 1 second. See 11 hands.
11, okay. So that fails, but the project doesn't fail because it has been referred to the capital projects. Okay.
Yes.
Well, how many then approve the recommendation actually of Jan and at least the support, I will call it, from the Fairfax County DOT guys, that we include the Greenway in the plan, at least mentioned in the transportation section, and possibly discussed in greater detail in the Parks and Open Space plan. How many are in favor of that? Please clear hands. And vote.
John,
Yes.
I guess isn't it going to be primarily in parks and open space and referred here in transportation? That's what I understood from the conversation.
So,
John Mooney and I can work together and decide
Okay,
which one it will go in, and we'll give you guys a recommendation
Okay,
based on whatever, however you guys vote.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, John.
who wants it included? Thank you, Jennifer. Who wants it included in the plan?
So I'll be counting hands in
somewhere
5,
in the plan, yeah.
4,
Right.
3, 2, 1. see 11 hands, John.
Okay. Let's clear
I see
hands.
12. I
Oh,
see 12.
12? Oh,
Yeah.
let me count again.
I'm sorry. I get 11 this time.
I think Jan had her hand up and it went down. So I think
Oh.
Jan was
I
12.
did vote, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's 12.
Jan is 12. Yeah.
Okay, please,
Sorry, guys.
please clear hands, and those opposed, please raise your hand.
All right, everyone. I'll be counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 2 hands, but I may, yeah, I see. Oh, no, one hand.
Okay.
Jennifer, your hand was.
Sorry,
previous.
Jose. I
No, no
forgot to bring
worries.
it down.
Okay, just one hand.
One hand. Okay. So the motion passes. Okay, thank you all very much. Okay, now what we want to do is go back to the places where the task force has voted and the Fairfax County DOT people have come up with alternate recommendations. And so those are items 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So let's go back in the matrix to number 1. Let me
I have
just move
opinion on
more.
number 1, of course.
I'm sorry, Jan.
I have an opinion on number 1.
Okay, well, before we hear your opinion, let me repeat what Fairfax County DOT said. It's possible to move away from identifying speed limits. The task force could also consider identifying the desired speed ranges or a desired feeling for a corridor, for example, low, medium, high speed, or modal preference. Please note that Fairfax County does not set roadway speed limits. That's Vdot, okay? So basically they accept if we want to stick with the task force decision to remove specific speed limits, we can do that. But they said it might be useful to identify ranges or feelings. Jan, you're first to comment.
Okay, I would like to keep it as it is, keep it out of the plan and let VDOT do it. I don't want to say it should be slow or medium or whatever. I just want it to be as it occurs. As the traffic occurs, you look at what's happening. VDOT will say, hey, this is too busy. We'll lower the speed. I don't like the idea of putting a range in at this point without seeing what happens
Okay.
to the transportation.
So they, again, just to be specific about what they said, you can either give a range or you can give a feeling like low, medium, high. So a quantitative range or a qualitative feeling, but you
Or
want
nothing, or nothing,
you want neither.
neither,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on this?
John, it's Jose. We have a couple hands. We have Chris Daniel, Maura Callahan.
Okay, Chris.
Hey, John, I think I'm going to split the difference on it. While I kind of agree that I don't want to see numbers necessarily, because I don't think any of us are experts in that, I do like the idea of a feeling, and I wonder how easy that would be to do, because there are certain corridors and spaces in this area that I think it would be nice if we as the task force expressed an interest, despite the fact of what the traffic might show and what VDOT might decide. I'm not going to, just as someone who has dealt with VDOT in many other fashions, say that I infinitely rely on their wisdom to decide that the speed is always the best, when maybe we want a more lower speed or medium speed. But I think part of my question would be is how easy would that be to do in this late stage of the game? Because I feel like that's an ask.
Well, that's what Bill and Gary and I would struggle with. Okay. If you direct us to do it. Okay, thank you, Chris.
Mark Callahan, then David Vanel, and then Bill Penniman.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I feel like we should move along, and we already voted no speed language, and I think we just stick with that vote and not open up a can of worms, because I do feel if you then started saying, do you want to go high speed, low, medium, then we're going to spend hours on what corridor should be what speed and voting on this and that. I feel like if you look at the majority vote, we already said no speed language. Let's leave it at that.
Thank you, Moira. Okay. Next comment.
David Vanel?
Yeah, I have a question. Can anyone on this call speak authoritatively to how VDOT decides what speed limits to set on any particular roadway? For example, in the TSA down by the east of Wheelie and south of Sunset Hills, pretty small roads, pretty compact, and there's some, I think, on-street parking in some of them. Or how does VDOT set that versus setting the speed limit on other types of roads? Can anybody
Okay,
speak to that?
I think John and Mike can speak to that. Thank you, David. John or Mike?
This is Mike. Can you hear me? I'm assuming you can.
Yes, we can.
All right. So they said it in multiple ways. One is they'll actually take a look at the road itself. We always have kind of a design class when they kind of go to design these road, and they kind of look at the projected usage. So they use kind of the county's models and kind of figure out what's the projected volume on here to kind of help determine what the appropriate design is. But the other thing that they do is take into context. So if it's more of kind of an urban type area or maybe more of a residential type area, they definitely take that into consideration to say, hey, well, this is not really an appropriate road to have a high speed limit. So we're going to look to kind of do a lower speed. The other thing we could do is we actually we work through with the developers in Vdot to design the road to make sure that it's low speed in nature. We'll make sure that the lanes don't get wide, like 12 feet. We'll make sure they get to 11 feet. We'll make sure there's on-street parking and kind of maybe more closely spaced intersections, which tend to lend themselves to having the lower speed type roads. So we kind of look at the context and character along with VDOT. We also, in this particular area, have our comprehensive plan that really lays out a lot of detail. But we also have recently approved multimodal design street standards with VDOT that kind of set the character and context of some of these roads. So as we come through and look at it, VDOT and the county will both look at those multimodal street standards and say, well, this road is intended to be more of a pedestrian type road or more bike type road. Well, in order to best accommodate those facilities, we think a speed limit of 25 or 20 might be appropriate here. So I hope that kind of at least answers some of the questions.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Can I piggyback and just ask a quick question? So what role does the comp plan play? It sounds like it's already being handled outside. How would you, so I'm just a little confused how you look at this if we choose speed limits.
Well, the comp plan helps set the character and context of the road. So it was also used, the comp plan is used to develop the multimodal street standards. And then from there, those are used to kind of help to develop the design speeds. So I hope, so this is kind of that first step in going down that path to lead us to the multimodal street standards to then set the design speeds of the road.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I think Bill Penniman was next.
Yes.
Just a couple of things. I'm more cynical about VDOT than perhaps Mike is, and having the sense they just want to move as many cars through as fast as possible, anytime, anywhere. But I am sensitive to what Morris said about opening up a new area of debate at this stage. And as long as the staff, VDOT is FCDOT and VDOT are thinking about these issues, it may be best not to start up redebating it. I mean, I do think for people who are concerned about pedestrian safety, about pedestrian walkability in the TSAs, and particularly the TOD areas, it would be wise to slow traffic down. But obviously there are people who think otherwise. And so maybe the best thing is to just leave it where it is, silent.
Thank you, Bill. Any other comments before we vote?
John, this is Chris Daniel. I just want to point out that I think Moira got to one of my concerns there, but and you as well, about knowing how much effort that was going to take to potentially do that. Well, I think it's a nice idea. If it's going to reopen and relitigate things, it's not worth it either. So I'm probably not going to go alongside it. I just wanted to talk the opposite side of the coin to make sure we had a full debate on it.
Thank you, Chris.
Why are we re-voting?
Because we said that we would just rediscuss drafts after we had received Fairfax County staff comments. We received our
This agrees
transportation.
with the Fairfax County staff comments.
Pardon me?
This agrees with, our vote agreed with them.
It does, but they say you might want to.
Okay, never mind. Never mind. We got to get going.
Okay, so here's the question for a vote. And there could be multiple votes, but this first one could settle the whole thing. How many want to keep it as is in accordance with the decision that the task force made earlier? Please clear hands and vote.
All right, everyone, I'll be counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 14 hands, but I may be
Okay.
wrong. Tammy,
How
am
is
I
it that
counting right?
Moira has 2 hands up?
Oh, wait. Moira has 2. Okay, so 13 hands.
I
Okay,
have my
Moira.
phone and on the computer, so count me one time.
She has both actual.
Okay. I think
What's rigging going on here?
She's both the main representative and the alternate.
Yeah.
So 14, just for completeness, please clear hands. All opposed, please raise your hand.
Bruce, was that a previous hand or just to confirm?
That's a real hand.
Oh, that's a real hand. Okay. All right. I'll be counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One hand.
One hand. Okay. As is. Okay. Moving now to number 4. So the task force voted 6-4 to remove the goal of motor vehicle LOSE from the transportation management section. And as I recall the discussion, some were totally against discussing any LOS. Some felt that LOSE was not protective enough against congestion, and so should be removed for that reason. So some didn't want to talk about LOS at all. Some felt LOSE was too congested and they didn't want to vote for that. So for whatever reason, the vote was 6-4. In their comments,
Vote was 10-6.
I have 6-4.
It
We're
says
on
10 to
number
6 on
4?
the screen.
The red on the screen says 10-6.
I'm sorry. That was the working group. Thank you, Tammy. It was 10-6. You're right. It was the working group that was 6-4. Right. So Fairfax County DOT's comment, the LOSE standard provides the county additional reliability, flexibility to plan for multiple modes of transportation, pedestrian-friendly streets, and transit-oriented development. Removing this reference would leave a default LOSD standard in place, which is a more stringent standard for vehicular delay. We recommend keeping the LOSE standard. Does anyone want John or Mike to clarify that comment?
Can John, can I just mention something here?
Sure.
I just think that we spent a lot of time on this in our subgroup, a lot of conversations, and, you know, kind of like Moira said, we, you know, made our opinions counted there in terms of the vote, and we should really kind of stick to that. And so I think there was so much discussion on this earlier that it's a point that there was a, you know, those votes that occurred, you know, in the total group and the subgroup, especially in the subgroup where we spend so much time on it. So I'll just say that before making another comment, but you've offered others to comment before I say anything else.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments?
See, Bill Penniman has a hand.
Bill?
I mean, I was one of the people who was in the minority on this one, but I think the staff's comments are important. LOSE makes sense for the TOD areas at a minimum. They're supposed to be walkable. They're supposed to be ones that people can safely move about. And LOSE is appropriate for those areas. It's been in place for a while. The system is working, and I don't see any good reason not to leave it in.
Okay. Any other? Thank you, Bill. Any other comments?
Just that I like the staff comment that they support the recommendation and would like to engage with the community, so leave it in.
I'm sorry. This is number 4, Jan.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I would not like to do that.
I beg your pardon?
I would like not to vote for that.
Okay. Any other comments?
John, this is Dave Vanel.
Dave.
I'd like to point out the fact that it is, for those of you who don't like Richmond, this is not Vdot, this is FC. And if they are saying that LOSE, which none of us like, but it's a fact of life that that's what those intersections are, if it provides the county with flexibility to plan multiple sources and multiple modes of transportation, I don't see a downside to keeping it on.
Okay, thank you, David. Any other comments?
Yeah, John, this is Dennis. A quick question. Look, as one who drives around Reston a fair amount, you know, D is horrible and B is just unbearable. The reason I like to keep it, certainly keep it not at the E level, is that it gives the FDOT or whoever an easy out so that every intersection will be at the E level before we go too much further here. D provides plenty of flexibility for people to put in all the good things that they're talking about here. And I'd like to see, I'd be more convinced if I actually believe that they were able and willing to do all of those things. So I'd say let's keep it where it is and work with them as we go along in specific areas. And if they can make a case, okay, but not as a standard across the whole board.
Okay, thank you, Dennis.
And John, I would just agree.
Gary, let's see if anyone else has a comment first. Any other comments? Any other comments? Hey, Gary?
Okay, so
I was just going to note, I mean, the reality is, I think what you'll end up seeing is you'll see, I'll call it road improvements that minimize the pedestrian benefits of it, as opposed to better balancing of the pedestrian and the vehicular objectives through all of this, because level of service D just means more lanes as opposed to a better balancing of how you move people in multiple modes. It emphasizes one mode over the other. So I think you'll end up with a different result than what folks may anticipate.
Thank you, Mark. Gary?
Yeah,
Is
I'll
that
just say I
written
agree with
somewhere?
Bennett.
Is that written somewhere that different levels of service benefit or don't benefit pedestrians?
LOSD benefits motor vehicles more than LOSE does.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Well,
Go ahead,
I'll just say I agree with Dennis. You know, this can be unbalanced in a way that's detrimental to lots of people, as Dennis is just pointing out. And also LOS in of itself, as you mentioned earlier, John, people are concerned about that, and many other, comp plans across the country do not include that in the comprehensive plan. So we're down at a level of concern, but also, the county can work with this anyway, and there's many times not in comp plans, including highly regarded ones. So I'll just add that to the thoughts here.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments?
Can you move the page up, John? Because we're basically asking about taking that sentence out. So what does it say without that sentence? That's what we voted on initially, was to remove that sentence.
It says nothing about levels of service. So that means it says
left
nothing.
out, it means we don't say LOSE or LOSD. We leave it open to interpretation.
We leave it open, according to Fairfax County DOT, to what the default standard is, which is LOSD, which means making it easier for vehicles to flow through without impediments by congestion.
John, if there's a specific section of road that's under question, can the county then make an appeal from that D and put it to E if there's a real need?
John or Mike? Comment from either Mike or John from.
Yeah, so this is Mike. I think what we're really talking about is the allocation of space within the limited amount of roadway that's there. If we choose to try to move to an LOSD, it basically says, okay, we want more lanes, we want more kind of capacity through the intersection, through the road. Whereas if we go to a lower level of service, we say, okay, we're okay with what's there. We'll live with a little congestion, but what we're going to do is allow for that space to be turned over to transit users, to ped and bike facilities, which is kind of what we're trying to have Reston be, is more that multimodal center where people can use all means of getting around. It's not that we're saying no to cars, it's just we're trying to balance the cars with people being able to walk and bike in this area. In terms of making the appeal, I think what we're trying to do is establish the vision, and we don't want to have one road that has one level of service and then the rest have a different one. At least in terms of the vision, I think that makes it a little confusing for the reviewers and staff and maybe even the developer who wants to come in.
So we're accepting the lowest possible standard everywhere.
It's not the lowest possible standard. It is one that we think is more appropriate given the nature of the transit station areas. We're looking only in the TSAs. We're not applying this to the Reston kind of neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods that are surrounding it, or to the village centers. So this is meant to apply to the TSAs.
Mike,
I
you
don't see
said
that delineation.
But the TSAs have issues in and of themselves already with walkability. They have a very difficult time on, not because of the cars, because of other factors. So the cars want to move. We're setting things that don't help the pedestrians or bicyclists, but hurt the cars while we're setting the standard. So we have other issues to contend with as we do this. We don't want to, as I said earlier, why do we need to for sure mention this at all here?
Mike, a follow-up question. You said that moving to LOSD would take space away from pedestrian and bicycle facilities and would be required, which we would be required to allocate to cars. Might it be a combination not just of space but of time, so timing of signals, so that either you would be taking space from pedestrian and bicycle facilities or time from them? Is that correct?
That's correct. And if the wider we have an area, the longer it takes for people to cross. So then people kind of sit there. We have to require more time for people to get across. Yes, it's green time, it's space, it's all of that. You know, if you think about kind of a little bit more compact areas when you don't have it such a wide intersection, it's easier for people to cross, easier for people to bike across. And it's actually easier even for the cars to be able to make their turning movements a little safer too.
We talked about this at one of our earlier meetings, and the reality is if you're a pedestrian, you make it through on one cycle of the light, correct?
It depends on how wide the intersection is. Sometimes
You make it, well, that's where your timing comes in, but it's basically one cycle of the light gets you through. Whereas what we're looking at with cars in level E is people spending perhaps 2 or more cycles to get through on 4:30 on the afternoon on Reston Parkway.
And I have direct experience with that. It does work the way Dennis is saying it is. It does. And also, if you talk to Vdot, they are going to set those standards, including at US standards. So I've talked to them on a number of lights personally here and with FC, not you, Mike, but others. I just think it's back to Dennis's point on this.
John, I have a comment when this is
Yes,
Jennifer, when I
Jennifer.
get a chance.
Yes, Jennifer.
We're specifically speaking to transportation management. And Mike, I think that you referred to the TSA areas specifically, and TDM does not relate just to the TSA areas.
Correct.
So I think part of the reason why we took it out is because we're not specifically talking about TSA. We're talking about all of Reston, and we
Not for
cannot make.
LOSE, Jennifer, not for LOSE. LOSE is specifically for the TSAs.
But that's it says the text that we deleted was in the transportation management section.
That's correct, which is divided into TSA areas and non-TSA areas.
Right, that was a comment by Fairfax County on the wording there of using transportation management that John, Bill, and I guess need to work out. That we use transportation management in a way that I think led to what you're talking about, Jennifer. John may want to comment.
Right, because the transportation management section, the purpose of it is that developers have to mitigate the traffic congestion that they're creating from their development.
Right.
So if it's at an E, then they have a lower standard by which they have to mitigate the traffic that they're adding to their parcel.
But
If you
LOSE,
put it at a D, then it's at a higher standard that they have to mitigate the traffic, regardless of whether it's motor vehicles. I mean, the traffic studies are done on motor vehicles. That's just the way that it's currently done. I think all of us in Reston wishes that it was beyond traffic, but that's how it's currently required. But I just want to make sure that we understand that TDM, the traffic management section, is related specifically to TDM.
say that last sentence again, Jennifer.
This transportation management section that you're referring to, where we deleted the sentence, is related to TDM. It's not, this is not the transportation chapter we're talking about. We're talking about the specific section on transportation management.
That's correct, but that is
which
not.
is where
that's
TDM is
restrict-
located.
That is not, so traffic demand management can and should be practiced throughout Reston, not just in the TSAs. And even though Fairfax County DOT did ask us to change our use of the term transportation management, they did not say that transportation management, or whatever we come to call it, applies only to the TSAs. It applies to the, it applies that concept applies to all of Reston. LOSE, LOSE as a goal applies only to the TSAs.
Hey, John, it's Jose. Sorry for interrupting. I think this is some good discussion, but I kind of
Okay.
wanted to ask.
Okay. So
were we ready? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I
Can
think
I
we're
make
ready.
one last clarification, please?
We don't know what we're voting on.
We're talking about 11 major intersections,
No.
north or south or inside the TSAs. We're not talking about going from A to E. We're talking about going from E to D. So let's clarify the extent of what we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Oh, hold on, John. Hold on, John Carter.
John.
Is that right? It says 11 multimodal centers. I assume those are outside of Reston. That's like Tyson's and Mount Vernon, and then it says including 3 TSAs. So what is the?
You're exactly right, John.
Yeah, it's not 11 intersections in Reston.
No.
There are actually very few. I can only think of 2 intersections that are completely in the TSAs. That would be Wheelie and Sunset Hills and Reston Parkway. All the rest of them are at least partially outside of the TSAs. So I do have one question on this. Are we operating above our pay grade here a little bit? It's hard for me to believe, maybe this is how we do it, but that these LOS are only set in the comp plans. I mean, we have comp plans that are 10 and 15 years old. Is there another way that, you mean the Board of Supervisors doesn't look at these intersections themselves as either part of a policy plan or something else besides a comp plan? These comp plans get old and soon. The other aspect is, it's nice to talk about level of service A, B, C, D, but in a couple of years, maybe that'll be gone. We'll have a different algorithm. Many other areas in the country have a lot of other systems besides LOS. So I'm just wondering if we're sure about our process in Fairfax County, and we're sure that this is really going to be lasting. It seems problematic the way we're talking about it, as if we think it's going to make much difference. It doesn't seem to me like it is going to make much difference. It's going to get old over time, and there may be other systems coming on that would make our comp plan out of date in a big hurry. So
I'll add to what John said. I called a award-winning locality.
Gary, I think pardon me for interrupting, but this is going on an awfully long time. And I'm wondering if we could not just proceed to a vote. Rather, I think we've discussed the issues. So you've talked with people about LOSE, Gary, so have I. I've talked to people who ran the program in LA. They don't use it for, they use other standards which are more environmentally directed. But anyway.
But some others don't have it in master plans. They emphasize it doesn't belong there. They're award-winning national plans. I'm just commenting, following along with what John said.
Okay. So let's, I propose that we vote. How many are in favor of keeping the language that the task force voted on 10-6 to keep the LOSE sentence out of the text? Please clear your hands and vote.
John, that was sort of unclear. Are you saying reaffirm the last vote or modify the last vote?
Vote, put your hand up if you want to reaffirm the last vote 10 to 6 to keep the LOSE sentence out of the text.
Okay, so I'll start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep them up. I see 10 hands.
Okay. Please clear hands. And those opposed, please put your hand up.
Everyone, I'm going to start counting hands in 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 6 hands.
Okay. Identical vote to the last time, so it stays out. Point number 5 has to do with the process that Fairfax County uses in keeping with the 2016 MOU that we've already discussed. This is how you resolve non-attainment of LOSE. So I think the arguments are the same. The comments would be the same. They said that even if this were removed from the plan, we would continue to use the process, which is part of our MOU with Vdot. So they said that they would be obliged by that MOU to continue to use the process, even if it is not in the plan. Okay.
Yes.
So I think we've heard all the arguments. Does anybody oppose coming to a vote immediately? So if not, I would ask how many are in favor of sustaining the previous vote to remove that process, that process description from the text of the comprehensive plan. Please.
So be consistent with the previous vote. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Who wants to reaffirm the previous vote of the task force?
Okay. Keep your hands up. I'm going to be counting in 5, 4, 3, 2. I see 9 hands.
Okay. Please lower
Wait.
your hands. How many are against reaffirming the previous vote to remove that section from the text?
Everyone put up your hand. I'm going to count in 5, 4.
I think Bruce is up twice.
Oh, Bruce, was that a new? Oh, it went down. Okay. All right, everyone, I'm going to count in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6.
Okay, thank you.
Did we miss someone, John? Because we got 10-6 the last time, and now we got 9-6. Guessing someone didn't vote.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but clearly the reaffirmation of the previous vote prevails. Okay, number 6, that's the task force voted 9-8 to remove the TDM goals from the text. Fairfax County commented, we acknowledge concerns about clear and realistic trip reduction goals. We recommend retaining the current trip reduction guidance as it provides additional flexibility and generally aligns with the countywide transportation policy objective 5 to promote transportation demand management to support efficient use of the county's transportation system. So that is their position. Any brief discussion of this before we vote?
yes, I will say that I think the goals there are too aggressive for a place like Reston where it's located. And just as we talked about this earlier, those need to be reconsidered. And while we're not saying TDM is a horrible thing or something negative, the way it's stated here is not helpful to Reston. Those are not goals that are really realistic. And having this out of here, I think, is the best thing to do.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Any other comments? Okay, then I propose we vote. So please lower all hands. Those in favor of sustaining, reapproving the vote taken to remove the TDM goals from the text, please raise your hand now.
Everyone, I'm gonna start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 9 hands.
Okay. Please lower your hands. Those who would like to restore the TDM goals to the text, please raise your hands.
Everyone, I'm gonna start counting hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 7 hands.
Okay. The text reads.
Sorry, my vote, I didn't get my hand up quick enough. It says Lynn. I didn't get my hand up quick enough for the previous vote.
So that was 10 then.
I'm sorry, when you see the previous vote, Lynn, you mean on number 5 or number 6?
This was the TDM goals.
Okay. So you are voting
So
in
your
favor of
first-
keeping it out of the keeping it out of the text. Okay. So it's 10-7. Okay.
Yes.
It stays out of the text. Okay. And then 7 is so we voted 13-4 to include new multifamily minimums in the text for areas at a greater distance from transit stations. The comment is, we recommend retaining the existing parking related guidance or removing it. As an example, plan language that addresses the task force concerns about parking in relation to distance from metro could be distance to metro or another major transit facility should be taken into consideration when determining the appropriate number of parking spaces, including the opportunity for shared parking or some other means to consolidate parking. Additionally, and then they invite us to join in a countywide parking study that is underway. And as soon as I am cleared of Reston Association budget duties, I intend to do that. So basically, they say they recommend retaining the existing language or removing all of it and putting instead a more qualitative encouragement to take distance from metro into consideration. So any discussion on this?
Well, I'll comment that I think we need to join the parking study, but you know, and as you just pointed out, John, that is something definitely we need to do. But I think we were pretty overwhelmingly, you know, in favor of having new minimums, and we should stick to that.
So that's for the
As much as
joining.
as much as the county tried to help us here, I mean, I think all of us were trying to do the right thing here, but we couldn't come up with it. I mean, the wording is good, an excellent attempt by the county in a lot of ways, but you know, I wish we could do more to make this clear, as you and I talked about originally, John.
So are you arguing, Gary, to include the recommendation in the text for new multifamily minimums or not?
Yes. I think we were, you know, like we've talked about before, we've gone around and around on this. And we'd be back into, you know, making another choice on how to do this. And since we voted so strongly to have those minimums, we ought to ask to do that, as much as I like what the county attempted to do here.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments on this?
Yeah. John, I think we only need to look at the Harrison to see why this is necessary. As you're aware, the Harrison does not have enough spaces for the people that live there. At the moment, they're renting the 1801 building parking lot, which at some point is going to go away. And then all those extra people are going to be pushed into the neighborhoods that are around there. Anybody who tries to go visit a friend in Reston knows that premium is at a parking. And at a time when we see, after initial approvals, developers going back and then cutting back on the number of spaces, like Gateway with 600 spaces, and whatever that one by the golf course took out another 100 and something after they had their approvals. We're going to continue to have a very serious problem if we don't address this in some fashion.
Right.
I agree with Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other comments?
Hi, John. This is John King. I just wanted to note that the virtual town hall for the it's called Reimagine Parking. That's the countywide process. Is for 100 mil is this Wednesday night from 7 to 8:30, I believe. So just a couple days.
Don, will that be repeated anywhere at any time?
I saw in the news. I believe I can certainly get additional information. There's I'm not sure how that process is going to work. If they will, I know there's multiple town halls. I know I saw the 100 mil one is this Wednesday. That's why I mentioned, but I'm not sure the exact process.
If you could send me information, because some of us have an important RA budget meeting that night. So if you could send us information about other ways we can plug into this process, I'd appreciate it. And I will share it with all the task force members. Thank you, John.
Okay. Thanks, can do.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments? Then I will ask for a vote if everyone would.
John, I have a comment. This is
I'm
Moira.
sorry. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Moira. Thank you.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, we just recently all spoke, or a number of us spoke at this ZMod, which we addressed this issue, did we not? And didn't that, I don't know if there was any change to the parking, but I remember that was part of the ZMod changes that were recently passed within the last 3 months. Am I correct?
John King or Mike Garcia, were parking ratio changes part of the ZMod for TSAs?
I'm told that parking was not part of ZMod this time around. It's being captured with the study that John King just mentioned going on right now.
I'm looking at, there was something in there, maybe it was just carried over in its maybe the ratio, maybe there wasn't a change, but I know that I asked questions about the number of parking spaces for different dwelling units. But I guess my question is, and I can pull that out, maybe they just carried the language over into the new version and nothing changed as far as the ratio went. But I know that I talked about it or had a question about it when it came through. But I guess my question is, if we were to make changes to this or wanted to see changes so that parking was made, so we had greater parking for people in these different zones, would that change be carried into the next zoning amendments? You know what I mean? Like, we can put whatever we want in the comp plan, but if you don't put it in the zoning, it's just a dream. So if we put something in here and want it changed, is it going to be carried into the zoning
We're
in
recommending that
another rendition?
we're recommending that you keep this to the vision and goal of what you want to see kind of parking be, such as if it's, there's a opportunity to share the spaces because, different uses have different hours. But in terms of actual parking rates, those again are part of the LDS initiative that's going on right now. So that's the best place to put them. The zoning ordinance and that are going to be where they are, where that governs in terms of an actual zoning case that comes in.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, let's vote, folks. Who is in favor of retaining the language that we approved 14-3 back in July? Please raise your hands.
All right, everyone, I'm gonna count in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 10 hands.
Okay, please lower your hands. And with those who do not want to include the new multifamily minimums, please raise your hand. So those who agree with Fairfax County DOT on this.
All right, everyone, I'm gonna count hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I see 6 hands.
Okay, so 10-6, the vote is to retain the language we voted earlier. And finally, number 8, the proposed traffic signal at Upper Lake Drive's intersection with Sunrise Valley. It was voted after Jennifer's clarification that the campus, one of the campus common proffers committed to seek a new traffic signal at that intersection. The vote was 10-7 to keep the language about a new traffic signal in the text. Fairfax County DOT's comment: we do not recommend keeping this traffic signal text. There is an established process for demonstrating that a new signal is warranted and justified, and the plan should not appear to circumvent this process. Any comments?
I think that the proffer made by the developer was subject to a review by Vdot or DOT, whoever it is who does it, FCDOT. Subject, they would put up the money for the light and apply for it, but it would be subject to whatever ruling occurred at the time. So I think leaving it in, but saying subject to review it after, at the time it's proposed is, and the idea being to make sure that the proffer is honored, albeit we know it's subject to appropriate DOT review.
I agree with that, actually.
So that we would add to our existing language, subject to appropriate VDOT warrants.
If I may, this is Lynn. I'm sorry, but if there is a proffer that provides for a traffic light, if traffic conditions do not demand a traffic light because the proffer exists, there should be no traffic light. I mean, it's crazy to take advantage of a proffer and burden a community that doesn't need a traffic light. when that proffer is determined to be applicable 10 years out.
Okay, other comments? Thank you, Lynn.
This is Mike Jennings. I'm confused a little bit. There's where we're talking about, because Jan's comment says if traffic lights were installed at the Upper Lake entrance closest to Wheelie, it would back up traffic at light. There's already a light there.
Yeah.
And then Jennifer comments about a traffic signal at the easternmost Upper Lake. Is that what we're talking about, at the easternmost Upper Lake and Sunrise Valley?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Campus Commons and Upper Lake Drive. That's the one.
There are two.
There are
It is.
two identically labeled entrances. Both are horseshoes.
Right. That's right.
This is Mark. Maybe I'm just confused, but
Oh.
what are we trying to accomplish here?
I'm not laughing at you, Mark. I also have that question. I don't understand. Do we put every proffer in the comp plan? Do we put every traffic light in the comp plan? I don't understand either.
Jennifer, do you want to address this since you're more acquainted with the proffer than most of us?
I agree with Bill Penniman. There's a proffer for the campus commons that says that they, through their traffic study, they wanted to put a new traffic light on the east side of Upper Lake Drive where it doesn't exist now, right at the corner where the pool is. And my understanding is that plan was approved. So I don't disagree with Lynn that they might build this building 20 years from now, and there's a proffer in there that now says there's going to be a light. And we don't know when it comes, whether there should be one or not.
So just as a matter of experience or course, what tends to happen, let me put it into a different context. There are proffers that date back to the late 1980s for the Reston Town Center urban core that say that at whatever time a signal is warranted at different intersections, the quote developer will build it. And there are numerous intersections that over the years have never warranted the installation of a signal because the traffic volumes, and more specifically the turning movements, don't warrant it under the standards that Vdot has set up for those things. A lot of times when the proffers are drafted, it says that there's a trigger that says when you build the building, if the signal is warranted within a certain time period after occupancy of either the building or the development, then you'll install it. And if not, then there's a lot of times of cash contribution that goes to FCDOT or VDOT for future use to install the signal at whatever point in time it's warranted. So just because the proffer says you'll install it, that doesn't dictate whether it gets installed. Instead, it's the warrant studies, or more specifically, the signal justification reports that are submitted to VDOT that time out the number of turning vehicles and the length of time it takes cars without the signal to get through the intersection or make turning movements. And so even if, my point is, even if it's in the proffers that says it will be installed, that doesn't mean that it will be installed. And vice versa, if the building never develops and VDOT determines that a signal is warranted, they can still install the signal independent of whether the building ever gets built, because their criteria trumps whatever's in the proffers.
Thank you, Mark.
So Jennifer, does what Mark said, could you comment on that and relating to this, you and Bill?
I think a majority of the people who were very active in Campus Commons that live on this road wanted the signal. And we understand that there has been a proffer commitment to put a new signal in.
And I agree with that. You know, we have a number of very specific road improvements that are described in other parts. And given the expected need for this, and I agree with Mark, it is, in the words of the proffer, as I recall it, simply that they will propose to build it subject to, you know, the warrant, the relevant review. If all those properties do develop in campus commons, you know, it's pretty clear there will be a need. Right now, there isn't. You know, if we were silent about all the intersections and widenings that are discussed other places, certainly no reason to do it here. It just seemed,
Well,
I haven't figured out the rhyme or reason for why some are included and some aren't.
no, that's an important point, I think, because, you know, you can end up with severe problems if you don't catch it ahead of the game. There's one here in Reston Town Center that didn't get, still hasn't been done, but it will be done. And it will be based on those old proffers from a long time ago. But people have, I think some people have lost their lives. And it's certainly been extremely impactful. And if you don't address it at the appropriate time that I think you all are talking about, then you can end up with problems.
As
Okay,
somebody
Mr.
who
Hartz,
uses
go ahead.
as someone who
I was
uses
going to
that
propose that we
intersection as
bring
a
it to a vote, but is it, who's commenting? Is that Moira?
No, it's Michelle. As so
Hi,
I
Michelle.
use that intersection quite a bit as a pedestrian, and as it is right now, it's rather scary because the trail doesn't connect at the road, and so you always, as you walk through, you just have to hope that whoever's turning onto Upper Lake isn't going to ram right into you. So I think there's already a need for an improvement there, and this would certainly do it, and you have the support of the community.
Okay.
Right.
What I would like to do is call for a vote then. And
Can I ask one more question though, John?
go ahead.
Do we know what the
Sure.
proffer says? I mean, you could be voting on this, but I go back to what Mark is saying is it could be that the proffer specifically states that it's not supposed to be put in until the last, you know, I don't know, there's like some sort of tenancy in the building. So it seems kind of crazy that, you know, that might be years out, might never happen. And as I said, you know, you have a lot of proffers out there. We're not putting all these, we're not going to go through all the proffers and say, okay, let's put everyone in the comp plan. I don't know why we're singling out this proffer versus any other.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay. Gary,
Because the community is asking for it. That's why.
What's
Regardless
the
of the
community? I agree with
proffer,
Myra. What's the community?
the community is asking for the light by and
Well, who's
large,
that?
regardless the people who live on that street that is affected by whether there's a light there or not.
well, and in the example I'm giving you, because all that had to be researched and, you know, a lot of attorneys involved, it wasn't going up as fast as it should have gone up. And, you know, there's been a big price to pay. So we need to do these when we can. That one's years old, and the buildings are paying for it today. Nobody's arguing.
okay.
So,
Let's take a vote. So I'm going to frame it this way. So the original vote was 10 to 7 to keep the new traffic signal in the text. So I'm going to, with your permission, since both Bill Penniman and Jennifer, who's very connected to the community on this, approved it, that to reformulate it a bit and say that we support the proposed traffic signal at Upper Lake Drive's intersection with Sunrise Valley, subject to the required VDOT warrants. So it's an acceptable formulation.
That's
Um,
unnecessary. It's already in.
Yeah, John, I don't think we need to get into that. We just prefer that solution. I think Michelle made it pretty clear what the issue is there. And we don't want to get into qualifying something that could be later not a happy ending for somebody.
I don't know it. Jennifer, it seems to me, supported that caveat. So
Oh, she
it's
did?
recognizing the language in the proffer itself that the installation of the signal was subject to the required VDOT warrants.
Well, I guess it is. I'll just say though that, we want to be pretty clear here that we want to be supportive of this. And being clear and turning it over to VDOT can end up with some problems too. So I'll just throw that in.
John, this is again Moira. Is the building that's going there, is that landowner like started building already, or is it possible they could sell this site? I just wonder, like, is there actual development going there right now?
Are you asking John Carter or John?
Nothing.
Well, anybody.
The
Does anybody know?
building,
What if I was a landowner and I sold it?
it has not been built. It has not started to be built. And the way the proffer is written, the landowner is asking for the light. The community is asking for the light. And it says that if VDOT determines that a traffic light signal is not justified, then the applicant will help the community request it.
I mean, just to be
That's
clear,
what we're doing.
That's the way that it's written in the proffer, and I'm happy to send the proffer language, but that boils down what's in the proffer.
even if all,
Jennifer?
go ahead, Gary.
Go
The
ahead, Mark.
community is requesting it here. Jennifer.
Jennifer, would you suggest a form of question that can be put to a vote at this point?
We voted 10-7 last time to keep the new traffic signal in the text.
Right.
So why are we not just voting just like we have for every other one? Are we reaffirming the vote from last time? Or are you not reaffirming the vote from last time?
We can do that. I heard you open to adding a qualifier to meet the concern of Fairfax County DOT, qualifier being subject to the required VDOT warrants. You do not want to add that to the text?
I think it's stronger if we don't, because it's also the way it's written in the proffer. And it was the reason it's written that way in the proffer is because the community talked to the developer and the developer said that they would help the community, even if VDOT said no.
Okay. Therefore, please lower your hands. And the question is, who wants to reaffirm the vote as it was taken to keep the traffic signal in the text as originally approved by this task force?
Everyone, put up your hands. I'll start counting in 5, 4, 3, 2. See 9 hands.
Okay, please lower your hands. Those who are against keeping that language, that new language in the text, please raise your hands.
Okay, everyone, put up your hands. I'll be counting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
7.
Okay, 9 to 7, it stays in the text as is. Folks, that's all I have for tonight. Are there any other? So it now falls to the Transportation Chapter Drafting Committee, Bill Penniman, Gary, and me to come up with a new draft, which we'll present to you for your consideration and hopefully final vote. Any other comments that you would like to leave us with before we wrap up this part?
Again, thanks to Fairfax County for doing such a great job on going through this for us. You'll see it when we get there.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one, John. I have one comment, John Carter. There's graphics that go along with this, particularly the grid of streets, and some have proposed eliminating at least 2 of the streets, the road to nowhere and the access there on Wheelie East that goes through the Fairfax County park. So I guess the graphics will be coming back somehow.
Yes, John. In fact, they mentioned that in their 4 pages of comments. Graphics.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you,
Important
John.
point. Okay,
Okay,
Jose, it's yours.
So Jennifer, I know we had parks on the agenda. Did you need the presenter role? So we can start that. If you wanted to just go over those and
Yes, I can, but
Okay.
just so everybody knows, I need to get off the phone by 9 o'clock.
Okay,
So
so
we have
so
15 minutes to go over my document.
okay, and then we can have Q&A at the next meeting if needed. Let me give you the you do have the presenter role. Go ahead.
Share. Loading. Sorry, my computer is spinning.
Jennifer, I know you're trying to put it on the screen, but I guess as we're waiting for it to come on, I saw some messages in the chat about meeting the week of Thanksgiving, and I got from one that he was going to be out of town, but the other that should be available. When Jennifer puts up the slides, maybe we can drop it. But how do folks feel about the meeting on Monday, November 22nd?
I think we need to go ahead and meet. I hate
Okay.
to say that, but we've got so much to do that it's ridiculous. So I don't think we can afford to miss any time.
Okay. Thank you, Tammy. Others?
I can do it.
Okay. Thank you, John. Are there folks in the task force that are willing to meet, but also, or others that aren't willing to meet?
This is Michelle. I can do it.
Thank you, Michelle.
I think Jen had to log off and is logging back on.
Oh, okay. Michelle, I think you sent me the draft. Did you want me to just put it on for the meanwhile, or we can wait for Jennifer to come on?
Yeah, let's wait one more second. I think she just had to
Okay.
log on.
Okay.
Jose, I can meet.
Thank you, Alvarez.
I
So
think I can meet also on the 22nd.
thank you, David. So what I'll do, I see your hand, Bill, your physical hand. So I think folks can meet. What I'll do is tomorrow I'll send just an email just to confirm it. I think most can. But as we wait for Jennifer to jump back on, any topics to come to the task force next Tuesday that are ready?
Jose, David Vanel, I'm going to try to get the housing thing in actually a completely different format, and maybe try to resolve some of the issues. But I'll need to check back with you later in the week to see if that's actually going to happen.
Okay. Thank you, David, for being candid on your I know that. So others in the task force that had a topic to come back that wanted to provide an update.
A list of the ones that are what has been approved and what's outstanding.
So I do. Let me see if I can dig it up.
Earn density we need.
Yes.
John Carter has a short one, subdivision and zoning ordinance modification. We have environmental stewardship. Bill and I are meeting on Friday with staff. We can update on that.
Yeah.
Probably
I also have
Monday.
public facilities, Tammy.
That's Friday the 19th.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Bill. I was rushing us a week. Okay, yes, that is correct. Maybe we can update on the 22nd. Public
Okay.
facilities, community health, and would love to see housing. We have finished commerce, historic, heritage resources,
Yes.
public art, and planning principles.
We have equity too.
Okay, so any of those available for next week? Besides, we're going to be obviously covering Parks and Rec next week.
Hey guys, I'm back on, but I'm only on my iPad because my computer died. Or my browser died and it won't reload. So, Jose, I think Michelle said she sent it to you.
Yeah, you want me to
If
put it
you
on the
could,
screen?
if you could put it on the screen, because now I'm on my iPad, I don't have a copy.
Okay, let me get the
There.
presenter role from Lisa, and then I'll put it up.
Thank you.
Presenter. Okay, have it up on the screen for you, Jennifer.
Okay, so the if you guys remember the last time we talked about this, we had our parks and open space section mostly written. We had a subgroup of people that met to go over some outstanding issues in the Parks and Rec section. And this is a summary of that discussion that we had. We had 3 major questions and a few kind of sub questions under each one. So the first one really is, what rules do we want to be used for inclusion of new parks, recreation, and open space? This came up because in the comp plan, it refers to the urban parks framework. And we have, most of Reston was built before the new TSA areas came up. So we needed to decide whether we wanted to keep the urban parks framework for all of Reston or just for the TSA section of Reston. And so what the subgroup decided is that we wanted a way to keep the urban parks framework, which is in Fairfax County's policy, for the TSA areas, but we wanted to retain our ability to have those larger parks, recs, and open spaces throughout the non-TSA sections of Reston. And so we sent an email to, well, I guess Sinclair was on the calls, but I think the email went to FCPA. And so we received a response from FCPA saying that they don't think that we should do that. I haven't heard anything back from the planning side of the county. So I'm saying that's still a work in process because we do want to separate the TSA park framework from the remainder of Reston.
This is David Vanel. Did their response explain why they felt that way?
It was just the FCPA, and the response went back to the whole task force. So I have in my master document the reason, but no, they essentially just said that we don't like that you guys are suggesting this, so we don't think that you should leave. We think that you should just leave it as the urban park framework for everything. That's basically a summary. It says the plan language includes urban parks framework, non-TSA Reston language for parks begins on page 35, but only references urban parks.
I don't understand if we're talking about an urban park framework, but it's in the non-TSA area. That is an oxymoron to me because outside of the TSA is suburban. So there should be no urban applicable to outside of the TSA. That's just my 2 cents.
So we don't have a previous, you know, when that parks framework was designed, it was really designed when Reston was designed. So it wasn't part of the Fairfax County plan at all. So that's why I don't have language to go back to just add it.
Could, this is Bill. I found the Park Authority language, there are 2 paragraphs, confusing, but I think they said that the urban parks framework only applies to the transit station areas, community business centers, and suburban centers. But it's unclear to me that they really did mean to say that the rest of Reston would be covered by that standard. Maybe we need clarification from them. I think the problem was outside the TSAs, you know, we don't have magic language, but it must be somewhere in county.
Hi, this is Andy Dorlester. I'm with the Fairfax County Park Authority. I believe the comment that Jennifer's referring to came from Anna Bentley, who was my supervisor. She has left the county now. And my understanding is that she was referring to the village centers. I think that the urban parks framework applies to the village centers, which are technically outside of the TSA, but definitely does not apply to just the regular suburban parts of Reston. So,
right, so what we're looking for,
concern about removing it from the village center guidance. That's my understanding where she was coming from with that.
right, but what we need is a parks framework for the rest of Reston.
Okay,
and
I see what you're saying.
I don't know where to get that because right now the Fairfax policy plan really points to urban, the urban parks framework. And part of the reason that I think there was especially some emphasis put here is that in the Urban Park Framework, there is a clause about policy or about pocket parks. And generally the task force has not been thrilled with the pocket park in the way that it has been applied. So we want to make sure specifically, that's one of our fears, specifically that pocket parks, really are not allowed outside of those TSA areas.
I would like them not allowed inside the TSA areas.
Yes, I think correct. I think some of us think both.
Yeah,
But
Ditto that remark.
the agreement we came to is that definitely not outside of the TSAs. But yes, Tammy is correct.
I'll
So
second
we're-
Tammy's point on that too. That's a problem elsewhere as well.
This needs more work. There may be
Right.
no such thing as suburban park standards. The urban park standards may talk more about the dollars that each developer has to contribute. So you might look at other ways or other language that would separate the type of parks that you'd want in the TSAs versus outside the TSAs, rather than leave no standard for the area outside the TSAs, which I think that might be where we end up. So it just needs some more clarification from the Parks Department, I think, on this.
Right. So that's why I have no language to add to Parks Recs right now is we really need some clarification of language we could use. So
Hey,
that's
Jennifer,
number one. Yes.
Are you including reference to the 15 full-size athletic fields that are required in this process?
I think that is addressed in one of the later points
Okay, great.
on this
Thank you.
page. Yeah, I think that was a subtopic as well. So number 2, Jose, if you want to scroll up. What community organizations get listed in the plan and what is the reason for their inclusion? So we drafted a something that we decided we would use as an appendix that lists all of the parks, recs, open space areas within Reston. And what we asked for as a subgroup was the county to add to that list the county related, like not just FCPA, but Northern Virginia Parks Authority. And the response that we got to that one is they don't think that we should include it in the plan at all. And that there is some web page that they will update when new parks are added somewhere out on a county site. But it was a big struggle to decide what parks, recs, and open space items to add to the plan because we didn't have a list of what was already in Reston. So this was a way for us to set up a future task force, as well, to have something that they could reference to get them started. And we thought that it could also be used from the what is it called, Gary, that you're doing economic development, economic development,
Right.
that it could be used as part of that project that we have in the economic development section so that the community would have a better understanding of what parks, recs, and open space are even available within Reston in the meantime between comprehensive plans. So I don't have that finished. I have the appendix that we did as a task force, finished, but kind of waiting for county staff to add their piece. So that's number 2. Number
To
3.
object here, Jennifer.
Yes.
And because we're on number 2, I noticed Fairfax Neighborhood and Community Services. I would really like Kathy Hudgens Community Center at Southgate, that's the new name, to be listed somewhere in acknowledgement that that is a viable working community center that is vibrant in that neighborhood, that's
Right.
active.
And Jen, you sent me those I have from June 7th. So they are on the edits list for so it is in there. Although I don't think it was renamed at that point, so I have to add the name, but we did add the language. So I'll
Okay,
fix the name the next time I submit the chapter updates, but it is on the list. It's in there already, waiting for these
great.
additional edits.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jennifer. It's really important.
Okay. So number 3 was on facilities. So the subgroup said, do new facilities get listed as individual items or as whole units? And we decided to leave the chart the way that it is listed currently. Should we have a priority list or not? And
Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
No, nothing now,
To
Jen.
leave it as is in my notes.
Yes. So we're going to leave the list as it is in both priority and as individual items, which is what we currently have. Do facilities only in Reston proper get listed? And the decision was that yes, only those that are within the area 3 of the Reston comp plan get listed. But if we want to create connections to those outside of Reston, then we would do that by adding them to the trail section. So for instance, I think someone in the land use section recently asked to add trail linkage from South Reston into Lake Fairfax Park. If that's something that we want, then we would put that in the plan. But because Lake Fairfax Park is outside of Area 3, Lake Fairfax Park or its additions will not go in the plan. That was the decision. But we would on a map have, like Lake Fairfax Park in a different color showing its proximity to Reston. And then we decided to remove from the chapter any description. Yeah, and I just said that. Any description or wish list item for those parks outside of Reston. Then D is what do we do with Barron Cameron's Park, because there's that sports tourism facility concept floating out there, and a decision was to add language to the plan that says we see the current Barron Cameron's Park master plan as the authority for what happens to that park, and if adjustments need to be made, then it should go through the normal master planning process, which would include a public perspective. And that we certainly wanted transportation to be, considered as part of that process. There will be a lot of public comment on that.
Yes.
Yeah. But we didn't think we had enough information, or there wasn't a proposal before us currently that we could decide what sports tourism meant and what they wanted to do with it.
Hi, this is Andy Dorlester with the Fairfax County Park Authority. There is no sports tourism proposal for Barron Cameron Park. There may have been a suggestion of that several years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Someone may have suggested, oh, let's do that at Barron Cameron. There's nothing going on with regard to sports tourism for Barron Cameron Park. There's a master plan in place. It's been adopted by the Park Authority Board, and that's what will govern what happens at that park, unless there's a new master plan amendment or update.
For that update, that's helpful. Because this summer when we
My
asked,
neighbor sat on this
Sure.
panel, and I'll send that to you. She just sent it like in the last 6 months. Something that passed. Bill Bowie was on it. I'll send it over, and you'll get to see it.
I'd like to see that as well. This is Lynn Mulston.
Yeah, I'll send it out.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
So we were just going to add that language that the community wants to go through the master planning process for the park, which should be typical anyway, to update a master plan for a park. E is should allocation of funds be in or out of the plan?
That's a discussion item, so I'd like to leave that till next time. F is on turf fields. So there was a robust discussion in the subgroup related to turf fields, and as you can see, the vote was very close, but the vote, says to leave turf fields in the plan, which I believe is Fairfax County's current preference when it comes to creating new fields.
That will be a problem.
G speaks to trails. Do trails go here or in transportation? Or do we have complementary language? How do we get, into the TSAs, or how do we get parallel to the toll road? And Bill Penniman was going to write us, some sample language for that. So I'll get with Bill. Bill, I don't remember, I couldn't find that you had sent me, but I know you were asking for what pieces you were responsible for. So we might have missed this one together.
I confess you didn't lose it in your computer crash.
No, I did not lose it.
But yeah,
Last time,
let's talk or trade emails, and
yeah.
I'll know what to write. Thanks.
But the second one, where you said you would write language for the civic plazas near the stations, that one I could find, and this was the suggested language that you wanted to add to the plan. But I do think that in general, what we need from all of you as a task force is graphic examples of what you would like to see. Both the subgroup and the full task force has been tasked with that. And so far, I have a bunch of them from John Carter as suggestions, but I have one from Bill Penniman, but that's all I've received so far. And then B is lake, stream, and valley parks. And that one I did not have any subnotes on. And John Carter, I thought this might have been one that you have brought up, unless someone in the subgroup can remember. We did not make a recommendation on it from a subgroup perspective.
I think there is a map on the land use map has the Stream Valley Parks on it.
Yeah, so they probably end up in the land use section instead of the park section.
Yeah, there may be something separate, and maybe that could go in the park section. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, so that one is unresolved.
Yeah.
And under wetlands, there was, after we met the second time from Mark Malcolm, a bunch of comments related to wetlands, especially around Herndon Monroe's TSA and the wetlands over there. I still have them, and I think that they went into the environment chapter. I think that's where they went, but Bill, that you and I can go through and see if you guys didn't catch them in the environment chapter and they would need to be added here. We had a request related to playgrounds, and having more specifics than what we currently have. We do have them on the chart, but adding a little bit more color to what it would say. Michelle offered to add some language there. And then as John Mooney went over today, we had this request related to the what is it? Pinecrest
Greenway.
Greenway. And some suggested language that we could add into the park section related to that. So I will get with Mooney, as we talked about earlier, as to where it gets added.
Okay, great.
So I would ask all of you to continue to look for graphics of what parks and recs you would like to see in Reston, and then save the one topic for next time, which Jose, remind me, it was like number E that I skipped over. I think that I can't remember off the top of my head now.
I was talking, but I was muted. Sorry. Yeah, it was letter E.
And it was called what? Sorry.
Should allocation funds be in/out of the plan?
Yes, and I'll go over that next time, but as a summary and something for you to think about between meetings is we requested the ability for proffers to be decided, outside community groups to be able to be the recipient of proffers within Reston. And the response we got from FCPA is that is essentially a staff and a supervisor negotiation or decision based on parcel. But I think the subgroup's, opinion was that we should allow for that mechanism within the comp plan or as a group say that we would like to be able to give the money to whoever's best equipped to provide the facility or the trail or the park or the open space. So I don't have any language for that, but I'm curious, and you can all think about between meetings, if that proffer money is something that we would like, to add some comp plan language around. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Oh,
Sorry, quickly, just
Yeah.
quick question. I just want to make sure that we did reach consensus regarding the inclusion or non-inclusion of the RA assets. So last I remember is that we decided not to include those because they are private, but it's the tennis courts and the trails and the swimming pools specifically. And of course, that would include the golf courses as well.
We decided to add all parks, recreation, and open space owned by anyone within Reston as an appendix for a reference purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Tammy,
Right,
you had
but not
a
have it
question.
in.
Gary, Tammy had her, she was trying to
Um,
make a comment real quick.
Could we, Jen, could you send that, or Jose, can you send that document out to everybody so we can be looking it over to make help, with the progress, please?
That's a good suggestion, Tammy.
Yes,
Thank you.
send it. Mhm.
Okay, so any other comments? I know it's 9:15. I know we went over and Jennifer stayed with us till 9:15. Any other comments before we break for the evening? So just as a reminder, Parks and Open Space is going to come back next Tuesday. And then David Vanel is going to get back to me later in the week whether housing would come to the next meeting. And any final, yeah, go ahead.
Jose, it's Moira. I just sent
Yes,
out
Moira.
that sports tourism
Okay.
link. So Andrea,
Okay.
take a look at that because it looks like it was passed in 2020 of August of 2020.
Okay, I'll share it with Miss Andy Dorlester.
Oh yeah, I see Cedar on there.
Oh, okay. Oh, even better. All right. Any other comments before we break for the evening? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We had some good discussion tonight, and yeah, we'll see you next Tuesday. And the supervisor should be on as well. So he had to jump off right at 9. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Jose.
you, Jose.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Jose.